Worms. I think it's about worms, friends. Hey, friends. I know that this is completely off subject of the topics that I normally talk about, but it's something that's always been a deep fascination to me. And it's recently come up in the news again for a couple of reasons. And one thing I want to say about North Korea, it is always referred to as a land of contradictions, very mysterious, the Hermit Kingdom, and of course, known world over for their human rights violations that are left largely unchecked because of the nuclear arsenal that they maintain. But my area of interest is more of the North Korean people themselves. Like, what do they enjoy outside of what they're prescribed that they have to do? What's their daily life like? That sort of thing. And even in videos to come, if I talk about their human rights abuses, I definitely don't want to pretend like I come from an innocent country. I love my country. I'm not in charge of any of the things that our government does. And it's the same with a lot of the North Korean people. They only know what they know, and they're trying to make a life, and they're not able to be in charge of what their government does. Also, another thing I see whenever commentators are talking about North Korea, especially American ones, they act, very, very shocked and appalled at the discrepancy between the elite citizens of Pyongyang versus the rural people. We have that kind of discrepancy in America too. Most people will never experience the Kardashian lifestyle or the upper echelons of Los Angeles, Hollywood lifestyle. There's opportunity here, whereas the North Korean people are completely restricted in their abilities of what they can do. And sometimes what restricts their abilities of what they can do are actions that they have no control over, such as, a family member defecting. All of a sudden, the entire rest of their family are left behind. There's a concept known as songbun in North Korea, and that is like a social credit score type of thing for a rough analogy. And if someone else's actions lowers your family's song bun, you can suddenly be demoted from everything that you ever worked for something that you have nothing to do with. And that's pretty horrifying. So, what brought North Korea into the news that I consume again recently, which is all on YouTube? I haven't had cable or regular TV channels by my choice in over 20 years. So, I only watch what I choose to watch. And I saw a video on YouTube about how Kim Jong Un and his government, his regime government, recently decided that they needed to crack down on North Korean women who were getting rotten capitalist illegal breast implants. And they authorized citizens to search. They can require the women to show their breasts, from what I understand, so they can verify whether or not there are surgical scars, and if there are surgical scars, make a citizen's arrest. 2 women and a doctor have already been prosecuted under this, and North Korean prisons are no joke, friends. And sometimes the people living inside North Korea, just like how Northwest, Kim Kardashian and Kanye West's daughter, probably has no idea the way people live in some of the very poor parts of rural Appalachia and the Ozarks. People in Pyongyang often have no idea what it's like for the rural people of North Korea. There's another defector who talked about how their father was a diplomat and they lived in Pyongyang, and they had no idea that people were starving outside of Pyongyang. They really thought they were living in the DPRK paradise at that time. And after they defected and left, her father started talking about how when he would be traveling outside of Pyongyang, there would be people starving and dying in the streets often at times. And she had no idea until they defected. One thing I find that really sucks about tourists who video in the DPRK is often they are laughing at DPRK people for working so hard with such primitive tools. They'll be driving around and they'll be like, look at this, or not driving around on the tour bus. And occasionally you get to see some rural people and be like, look, they're all out trying to clear ice off the road with the most primitive of shovels and sometimes sticks. And they can't imagine why they're bothering since they don't have the machinery. Well, if you do just a little bit of research into life in the DPRK, every citizen is required to come out and clean the streets in the morning. Morning time at a specific wake up time for the whole country, this very, very eerie sounding music plays. And in rural areas, a truck is driven out there with speakers on it so that the rural people can hear it and wake up too. And they are required when they hear that, get up, go outside and clean the streets. It's actually so ingrained in their personalities that some of the people who've defected to South Korea find that shocking that how dirty the streets are because there is no requirement for people to come out and clean them. The road crews get to them when they can get to them. And it's just to them that feels like living in filth even though they are appreciative of living in a free country. They just don't understand why it is that way. So anyway, whenever tourists laugh at them, with hand put together brooms made of twigs and sticks, or be chip and ice with a pole, a wooden pole or whatever, they could be put in prison if they don't make that effort with whatever they have. So I really wish tourists that have the ability to go there and video would be more respectful and more understanding of what the people are doing and what the consequences are if they don't follow the rules. And that brings me back to my original subject. Why are North Korean street vendors not allowed to sell to tourists? Well, if you Google this, the answer that you get on Google is North Korea is very protective of its public image, and they only want tourists buying food that is representative of North Korean culture. And that often the stall vendors are making Western variations or things that have kind of come in from South Korea and that type of thing. And they don't want tourists there to experience food that's not indicative of North Korean culture. I don't think that's the reason, friends. I think that's their propaganda reason. I don't think that's the real reason. Like I said in the very beginning, I think the real reason is worms, unfortunately and sadly. If you've watched any North Korea videos, you've probably seen Charles Rue. He's a North Korean defector, has a really popular YouTube channel. I love watching his stuff. And he has revealed that just like the North Korean defector who was shot several times crossing the demilitarized zone into South Korea, they had to do surgery on him to get the bullets out because North Korean soldiers were shooting him for trying to leave North Korea for the South. And whenever the South Korean soldiers got him, he'd been shot, I think it was 10 or 11 times, and they had to remove bullets. And during the surgery, they found that he was absolutely riddled with intestinal worms, stomach intestinal worms. Charles Rue has revealed that that is very true reality for most North Korean rural people, and that he himself has to take a pill every couple of years to keep the worms that are in him down from all his years of having to eat the way that he had to eat there.
North Koreans have parasitic worms in their stomach. People are using human waste as a fertilizer, which is not sanitary at all. North Korean people doesn't have money to buy fertilizers. Therefore, we also eat the crops that was raised with the human poop. So
Part of the reason why the worms exist is because North Korea instituted a program to increase agricultural, and it is something that it was an ancient practice. It's called using night soil for fertilizer, and it does include human waste. From what I understand, there is a way to do it to process the human waste that allows it to not cause worms and the people who eat the vegetables fertilized by it. But it doesn't appear that that process happens most of the time in North Korea. And not only is that like a mandated agricultural practice, Kim Jong un instituted an actual sewage waste quota requirement from all the citizens. The citizens often get severely punished if they can't produce enough sewage from their own body while they're starving. And this has led to actual sewage thefts of community toilets, of private toilets, of battles to try and get enough sewage to meet the quota of different communities and stuff like that. It's wild, friends. Now, in Pyongyang, and especially for, dear leader and the elites of the DPRK, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, there are greenhouses where vegetables are grown very sterile environments in very specific ways. They are even played North Korean propaganda for them to grow better and be more nutritious for the leaders and for the elites. So, my suspicion is that the tourist food that's allowed for them to buy at the approved restaurants for tourists, where they're allowed to go in and eat and shop, the food probably comes from those places where they're sure that nobody's going to go back with worms, because we know North Korea is serious about their reputation with tourism. I'm pretty sure that they would have instituted all rules necessary so that tourists don't go back with worms and make a big deal about it and become a laughing stock of their tourism industry, because they are very, very sensitive of, looking silly in public opinion. The regime is, I mean. Another thing that concerns me whenever I see tourists in North Korea trying to convince street vendors to sell them a sandwich or their food or something, they see a tourist coming towards their stall, they pull down the window. They have rudimentary English, usually enough to say, nope, no sale, no sale, like clap them away. And some of them will try to convince the people to sell to them. And that bothers me because surely they understand that if they did convince those people to break the rule and sell to them, that they might be putting their lives in danger, and not only their lives, their children, their grandchildren, their parents, their brothers, sisters, their grandparents, like whatever family they have alive could destruct their whole lives if they broke a rule to sell to a tourist. And then, should that tourist go home with worms, oh my God, it would be even worse, because then it would have brought international shame on the regime and the people's paradise of the DPRK. So, yeah, whenever I see those videos of the tourists trying to convince the North Korean people to sell to them against the rules, I'm just like, what are you doing? Let those people be safe. Listen to them. What do y'all think, friends? Am I going too hard on them? Am I right or am I reaching? I gotta say, it makes me sad as an American that I will probably never be able to visit North Korea. I would love to visit in a respectful manner and attempt to interact with the people, the North Korean citizens that I'm allowed to interact with, because there's a lot about their culture that I find really, really cool. I like that the rural people, when they're not, starving or experiencing horrific human rights abuses, they are people who are very proud of their hard work and living off the land. They're people who seem to manage to just make a way no matter what. I respect their resourcefulness in their circumstances. And I've read a lot about the rural North Korean mountain people, of, some of their superstitions and their folklore and their herbal healing ways and stuff like that. And it reminds me that all over the world, mountain people are mountain people, and we have so much in common in spite of our different cultures. Like I've told y'all many times, I'm born and raised in the Ozark Mountains. And whenever I just read, not about the regime, not about the things that the leaders of North Koreans are doing, when I read about just the regular everyday rural people, it makes me really sad, because I feel like these are mountain people that if they had freedom of expression, we would be able to chat and have a lot in common. I hope to see a free North Korea one day, but I do not believe America or any other superpower should go in there trying to liberate it, because, for one thing, I'm not an American who believes that we should be the world police. I think we should let other nations handle their own stuff and only help when asked. But North Korea has deep, deep anti American propaganda. Some of it may have kernels of truth, but some is just clearly so over the top. Some mimics the propaganda against Jews during the time of Hitler. Some mimics propaganda against Japanese during the World War. Some of it even mimics ancient Roman propaganda that I've read about the Romans coming after Queen Boudica, the Iceni queen of the Celts. So those people are been going to the American Museum of Atrocities. since kindergarten. And I don't see a way America could do any kind of intervention for help without making the North Korean people themselves feel terrorized. And I wouldn't want that. I would like to see a free North Korea, but I don't think that America should have a hand in that. Anyway, what do y'all think, friends? Let me know in your comments. And I have a lot more random North Korea information rattling around in my head. So there'll probably be more videos. Let me know if you enjoy them. Have a good day, friends.